And thank you all for coming to this talk, Building Inclusive Workplaces for People with Autism. In this talk, I'm going to start with an intro. I always like to start my talks with an intro because I find this a good, accessible approach. Then I'm going to tell you about my personal job experience, what worked and what didn't work. I'm going to give you some theory about autism. And then the biggest part of this talk will be results of this theory and how to help coworkers with autism. And finally, because we learn at this track here at Microsoft Unite, it is the diversity superpower. So we're also going to talk about the talents and not only about the difficulties. We're going to wrap up, and honestly, I don't know if I have any clue if there's going to be a Q&A, if we're going to have time for that. But afterwards, I hang out before on the stage. So let's kick off this talk. Welcome to Ignite. Welcome Orlando. Welcome Microsoft Ignite. This is a wish is really becoming reality. It was my childhood dream to come to the United States, to go to Microsoft. To go to a Microsoft conference was not as a child. It was a bit later, maybe if I was already 16, 15, 17, so is 15 still a child? It depends, these are adolescents. And then I had another wish, a big Microsoft conference. So in May, Mats, he was here in the room, made a really big dream possible for me. I get an invite to the Microsoft headquarters, and it was amazing. But I believe in magic, and magic never stopped. So I'm here again. And tonight I do my really my childhood dream, and theme park in the United States. Oh, this is going to be fun. And I want to thank everybody. Also, Anna and Shona are involved, and Laurent. I really thank everyone involved with making this magic possible for me. Who am I? I'm Dennie Declerq, and I am a full-time volunteer developer. What does that mean? All the time that I have in my life, I do programming, learning to program, and networking about software for people with disabilities. The DSoft is a non-profit specialized in software for people with disabilities, and I run the non-profit. I am the president, and I do development, and I'm teaching others how to learn to be accessible. I'm very active on Twitter with my hashtag @Dennie Declerq. And my favorite hashtag 2 years ago was Dreaming is Believing. 17, I wanted to be a world-famous conference speaker. So dreams come true, my friends. And also, I work in Ithaca, also a place where I volunteer half a day a week, if I'm not on travel for a conference, to help the clients there with accessibility. Ithaca is a coaching center for people with disability, with an intellectual disability. Yes, and this year is really magic. I've been to the States before, I've been here at Ignite, and tonight I'm going to Universal. So enough about this, going back to reality. My autism. I had a diagnosis when I was 13, and the years before I was 13 were dramatically. In the pre-elementary school, I really had a hard time. I really was bullied a lot, way too much. I was even bullied with physically fighting, what means slapping and with the foots. I don't know if the English word for that. But even they physically bullied me until I had a conclusion. It's terrible. And then I had to go to another school because it wasn't possible for me anymore. Not because the way of the level of the content, the learning content, but because I couldn't live with the bullying anymore. And in the special school, there were children with all disabilities, and they bullied less. It was my last years of my pre-elementary school. And then I tried to go to a technical school. In Belgium, pre-elementary school is until 12. And then starting your 12, 13, you go for the last 6 years to another school. I don't know how to translate it into English. And there you learn your job. And the first year of the school, we didn't know at this time that I was autistic, but there were things wrong. And bullying and bullying. And then the last days for the summer holidays, before I have to go to the second year, I really crashed, really hard. And I had to go to a clinic where they diagnosed me with my autism. But they gave me another present. They don't only give me the diagnosis being autistic, they give me some not fun present. I get a trauma in the clinic. I was very traumatized. So I don't have an official diagnosis, but I'm definitely sure that I have PTSD. In Belgium it's called PTSS, but in English it's PTSD. But I don't want a diagnosis of PTSD. There's only one reason. There are psychiatrists and psychologists that have to do the examination if you have the PTSD diagnosis. And I'm really happy for all the people who have a good relationship with their therapist, and I'm really happy for them. But due to my trauma, I don't dare to go to them anymore. So what can I say more? All the other years in the school, I was bullied less in the school for people with autism. So after the diagnosis, they put me to a school for people with autism. And then I was bullied less, but there the level of math was way too low. So it was a study where no math was involved. What happened? I wanted to be a programmer. I didn't call it in Belgium a developer, I say it a programmer. And I went to my teacher and asked, I want to learn to program. I want to buy a book to be a programmer. And I was 16, and I was doing development as a hobby. But she said, buy a book for dummies, and I didn't listen. I buy the complete hard book. At this time, it was Visual Basic 6. But I didn't belong, and I always was a fanatic pro Microsoft since I was really young. I think when I was maybe 8 years, I wanted to meet Bill Gates or work for Bill Gates. And now we have Satya, I really want to meet him too. But let's talk about this. When I was it was 19 because the pre-elementary school, I had to go to a school for children with a disability. That was 1 year longer. So I was 19. I couldn't do high school because the level of math was way too low, and I had to try to search a job. So summer was out, school's out for summer, and trying for job applications, and being refused. I never had an invitation to go on an interview, but I think there's an important reason. First of all, I'm going to point to one thing. This story was in 2007, 2008. It's more than 10 years ago. So definitely things have changed. I never had an invitation, but I had to say that it was autistic. They learned me in the school. They say, the name of the school is on your resume. So you have to explain, and everyone knew that this school was specific a school for children with autism or teenagers with autism. And so that didn't match. And I had to go to a fabric, and not to a fabric that I wanted to go. I didn't want to a fabric job. But I had to go to a fabric for people with disabilities. And nothing wrong about these organizations, but they didn't work for me as a person with autism. There were some problems. So, issue one, I didn't have a master's degree, and there was nobody wanting to gave me a job into developing software. At the fabric, the government told me that I had to go to a school, to a workplace for people with disabilities. The government said that it were manual jobs, and another thing, my autism, you're going to see later, but I'm not good at doing manual tasks. I have to do work with my brains. And in the factory, I couldn't do things with my brains. The brain level was way too easy, and the manual task I couldn't do. I talk too much. No, it's good to talk very much. If you want to become an international conference speaker, then you can talk. You can you talk as much as you want. But at this time in the fabric, it was not good to talk too much. And they say, Dennie, shut up. Dennie, be quiet. Dennie, work instead of talk. But that was so difficult for me, because the work itself really didn't interest me. And I had a limited topic of interest. I was a hobby programmer at this time. No, at this time I don't call myself a hobby programmer anymore. But there were people in the workplace of the Fabric for People with Disabilities, there were effective people saying, I was saying that I was a hobby programmer using Microsoft technologies, but it wasn't possible. I couldn't be a hobby programmer. I was a liar. I didn't lie, of course, but they really say to me, if you work in the Fabric for People with Disability, that means that you have a disability, so you are not clever enough to be a programmer. So I was lying all day long. But of course, I said it too. As I said, I had a motoric restriction, so I was slow in manual tasks, and I'm still slow in manual tasks. That's the reason I have to program to do computer tasks. And that's still my biggest difficulty at this time. And a lot of the next part of the talk, going on that talk, my biggest issue is speed, stress, and deadlines. Because I work slower, and also I'm a programmer. I'm pretty sure that most of you are coding really faster than me. This is okay, because I'm a volunteer. But I'm afraid if I go to a job, a paid job, I don't think it's going to fit for me, because I'm afraid that I'm too slow. And it proves also, if I compare myself developing to other, I have friends who are developers, I free code and stress out with deadlines. Some things are special in life, you know, as I say in magic. Do you know, I can't cope deadlines. But I don't have any idea, but if I have to speak at a conference, the talk has to be ready for the conference. Sometimes the day for the conference, some conferences weeks and before. And I never had issues with making a talk for a conference. Maybe because it's not daily. I was saying I only speak a few times. But last fall of this fall, and for me, fall starts in September. 1st of September is the fall season until the end of December. I simplify these things. And in the fall, I had a lot of conferences. It's not my last one. And I'm pretty lucky, as I am supposed to do this. So 2012 was the end of an era. The end of an era for trying for a paid job. But it's also a start of an era. I really crashed mentally, psychologically. I take a break, and I could live on a fee for people with disabilities. A sickness benefit was it at this time. And I moved afterwards. And I went to Ithaca, and Ithaca is a lovely coaching center for people with learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities. And I said I wanted to be a volunteer there. And I thought it was quite the same. They also had a computer store. And I thought my talk was to be to fix the computers, but they don't have a computer store. But I say, I want to volunteer, I want to do anything in my life, but living on a fee and doing nothing, it's not your desired situation. So, and they said, what is your hobby? What is your passion? I say, I can program. I'm a programmer. But I think that doesn't belong here. Oh, and they say, yes, it does belong. We have a project in the fridge. So very way of saying it's not the truth, but in Belgium we say figurative. But so a project in the fridge, you cannot expand that. You can't make it happen again. and I did beautiful things in Ithaca. In 2015, I was completely into the way of thinking of software for people with disabilities. Then I kept going to Ithaca, but I founded my own nonprofit, DDSoft. And there is one big difference between Ithaca's and DDSoft. Ithaca is working via third-party software, and the third-party software is working with Microsoft, but it's visual programming. I don't have to write code. I really love to write .NET. So I founded my own nonprofit, DDSoft, and the main vision was expanding my knowledge of software for people with disabilities on a .NET way. And I'm going a half a day in a week to Ithaca if I'm not on travel. And the hours that the DSoft doesn't count. Yeah, it's my thing. I can't count that. And I really can use my talent as a volunteer. I speak at a lot of conferences and share my insight about accessibility. This talk is not about accessibility. I'm not going to learn you to make accessible apps, because I'm going to tell you about working with a coworker. The introduction of myself, my label on talks is I like to use a long introduction of myself, because I know it's a quite difficult experience. I think maybe I'm the only developer here, speaker, who has no paid job as a programmer, has a very specific scenario. That's the reason I like to give a good introduction about myself. So, and in August, I became an MVP. Yeah, it's amazing. No, but please take it very seriously. I'm not going to kid you, but if I started to go to local conferences in the community in Belgium, I always thought that Microsoft MVPs, because they're nice word Microsoft, but for the title, I always thought that were employees from Microsoft. And my childhood dream was to be an employee of Microsoft. So maybe if I know MVPs are not employees, but it's so magic to get the recognition. And there are people in the room like Laurent really helped me to achieve this, and I'm so happy. And I want to do so much of I can to keep being an MVP. But I'm still a volunteer. That means I have financial consequences. I have to be very careful about my money. And why am I still a volunteer? No, you saw in my talk in the last 7 years, maybe you think you've grown a lot. You are not the same anymore. Oh no, I'm not the same Dennie anymore. And I'm proud of that. But the rules in Belgium, the government is so strict. So if you try to go for a job, you lose your fee. And the bad thing is, if the job doesn't work, you don't automatically get the feedback. So it can happen that due to the next part of my talk, the difficulties, that it doesn't work for me because I'm too slow, because I'm too stressed. So I don't have a paid job, and I crash, and I don't have a fee anymore. And then, without money, you can do nothing. No money works than less money. That's really pity sometimes. So I'm going to give you some theory about autism. How many people in the room think that they know a lot of some things about autism? Few of them? Good. Autism theoretically is very complex, but I'm going to make it simple. It's not the only truth that I'm going to say. I'm going to do a simplified version, of course. And autism is a mismatch in communication, executive functioning, central coherence, and context blindness. Maybe some of you don't know these terms, and that's okay because the next slide is all about the terms. The only thing I have to say on this slide is, if you are autistic, you have difficulties on all these fields, not only one of them, then there's another diagnosis, and all these fields are coming back in every situation in your life. Communication. Talking too much or too little. Other very specific limited topic of interest. And I say to my neighbor, I live in an inclusive living project, and I say to my neighbor, You can say that people with autism don't have elbows. And what is the meaning when don't have elbows? Why do you need your elbows? To feel. Is it okay to say this? You have to touch, to feel. I don't have them. And of course, limited topic of interest. And at some places where people know the technology, being really fanatic for Microsoft is not always a way to get into a good conversation. Pity enough. Too bad. And I have difficulties with eye contact. And that's the last part of my autism that I'm really working on in the last years, months, but it's really difficult. And maybe some people here in the room or at the conference or watching this talk online as recording and saw me on the eye contact, and then he is very asocial because he don't make eye contact. It's so difficult to make eye contact. And I not always succeed. And executive functioning is all about planning, to be flexible, time management, doing public transport, and cooking dinner. I have only problem myself with doing groceries. It's very stupid to think, but I have more difficulties. It's very difficult for me to go to the store next to my door to do groceries, to think on what I need and the groceries. It's more difficult than planning a trip to the other side of the world. Yeah, but is it true for me? So I said I'm special. A central coherence is a global view of the situation. So here in this picture is a global view of the situation, and I want to make a link with Microsoft Ignite. If you put, of course, if I knew that I was coming to Ignite, I knew that I wanted to do I researched a lot of pictures of last year's. But you can see 100 pictures of Microsoft Ignite last year, and 2017, you don't have any idea how Microsoft Ignite is. Here, this picture is taken, and Aurelius is a Swedish implementation of United States, and they have all places over Europe. This was in Ghent. And if you see this picture, is a golf cooked, but it was way more than a golf cooked. And context blindness, one incentives, one meaning. In communication, in all ways of communication, verbal and non-verbal. So in communication, one word means one meaning. What do I mean? Some people, a lot of people, without difficulties, without neurodiversity, are using the same word for a lot of things. For people with autism, one incentive, one word, one meaning. Very simple. And autism is also a comorbid diagnosis. Anxiety, stress, depression, as I said, PSD, ADHD. Not everyone with autism have a comorbid diagnosis, but a lot of them. And most of the time, the comorbid diagnoses are the biggest difficulty. So maybe it's the thing that working for me is not possible due to my PTSD and my stress. It way works than my autism. I don't know. Sometimes you cannot find everything. So this result in autism and how to help people with autism. And this is the last part, and also the talent. But no, I'm really going to give you handles to work with it. And people with autism can stuck in a thought. And this can be a bad thought. For example, it didn't happen. But maybe I thought yesterday, oh my God, tomorrow my talk is not going to be good. You can have that for a lot of things, for travels, and then they have a lot of worries. Advice to support people with being stuck in a thought: suggest positive thoughts. And it's really important to say and to indicate that you are not angry on them. A lot of people with autism think that you are angry of them. And they can also stick in the thought that they are angry on them. And what did I wrong? So say that the person didn't anything wrong. But please don't make yourself angry. Sometimes you get the nerve of it. If somebody is nagging or worrying, but sometimes they can't handle it. And please, for people with autism, don't raise your voice. Or everything say, oh, you're nagging too much. Can you be too honest? people with autism can. And sometimes this can lead into a very embarrassing situation. And it can be for shaming situations, but also don't having elbows. By example, I didn't told to Laurent before, I want to mention you that I'm thankful for you for getting me to here and getting me as an MVP. I didn't feel it. Maybe it's not good for his job that he did that. I don't know. I was really honest. And I hope he will appreciate it. He said, I love you, brother. It's good I have a brother. Nice. Advice to support, be aware of what you say, and if something kept to be private, indicate it that it needs to be private. And please don't think or don't assume that your coworker knows something is private, something is not to be said. And for this, don't break a professional relation. I also say don't break any other relation too. Difficulties, corporate deadlines. Yeah, that's difficult. Many people with autism have difficulties with coping with deadlines. I'm not the only one. Advice to support, my advice, so if I could give to an employee the full description, how to handle me if they want to hire me, so Microsoft, you are here, I'm going to do this talk. So advice to support, give R&D projects, give longer-term projects, and most important, or even important, split up very clear, larger chunks of work into very smaller parts. And please don't stress too much on the deadline. Or don't prioritize the deadline. Oh, deadline is coming. Do you know tomorrow there's a deadline? Next week there's another deadline. Just don't do it daily, please. Difficulty. Limited topic as interest. As I said, I have it too, but all other people can have other limited topics of interest. Advice to support, listen to the story at least a few times and try to show interest, because if you are autistic and you have a limited topic of interest and nobody wants to listen to you because it's very, very hard. If you always go into a room of people like coworkers and you always want to tell a story and they always left you behind, no, it's not important, and they stop telling to you and talking to other coworkers, then you are not healthy in your mind. But also, there's an also, keep telling about your own interests. For example, after I shared my thought of the person with autism shared his interest, also we will talk about your own topic of interest. And ask feedback to engage them. For example, my topic is Microsoft. For example, your topic of interest is dancing. Like the last talk was about dancing. And they tell you the story about dancing, ask feedback to engage them, then they learn to engage with that. But please don't completely ignore the person. And please don't say time and time again that your coworker, he, she, or of course, X, there are other gender diversity too. It's not included in this talk. My excuses for the people in the room is nagging. Talking too much, how you handle me. But autism, you have a lot of variation, but you're going to see the opposite in later slides. Advice to support, indicate clear and polite that he's talking too much, that you don't have time. Not now, indicate, but do it polite. And ask at your work to continue working. And incentive them. You know, at your job, I think, not on each job, I don't know about Microsoft, but I think on each job, not everything is even funny. So if a coworker with autism, most of the time, if they have to do a task that's not so funny, then they're going to talk too much, or other things like being in their own world in later slides. Then incentive them with the talk that they prefer more than the talk they are doing right now. But please don't start ignoring the person. And what's also very awful, if they always stop you and block you just in the beginning of your conversation. It's awful. But as I said, autism is also a diversity. You have people talking too little. Can you help them? Of course, you can help everyone if you want. Ask specific questions. And don't assume the person needs to tell something. And start the conversation. Start telling something yourself. And also don't ignore the person. Some people can be ignored because they talk too much, and it's annoying. But some people, if they don't say anything, conversation is going with other coworkers on the table who are talking. It's also not okay. Now, in my next slide, I do something special. There are a lot of people here at the diversity talk, a group of people, not a lot, a group of people into dinosaurs. Are the dinosaurs people in the room still? I don't know. But why are the dinosaurs jokes so bad? Because they are prehistoric. So it's a boring joke, you don't have to laugh at it. That's what I'm saying. Some people don't have a very different kind of humor. And this humor is just grabbed from the internet, of course, with the license that I can't use. But sometimes a person with autism has a very specific topic of humor. And sometimes it's embarrassing. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense at all. A place to support. And the other thing, what I didn't say, sometimes they don't only have a strange sense of humor, but they don't understand your jokes. Sometimes a lot of jokes people without autism are making, people with autism don't understand these jokes. So explain the jokes if it's needed. And a lot of people with autism, if they're becoming older, they call it learning to cope with them. So they don't saying to you, I don't understand your joke. So you have to be aware of his non-verbal communication. You can try to fish if you understand. Don't assume they understand your joke. Sometimes they just laugh because you see other people in the room, and you have to laugh. And if they make some special joke, please don't be offended. Very hard difficulties, being afraid to ask help. Some people with autism are afraid to ask help at a job. Advice or support, look into his or her problem, into his or her project. Log in into Visual Studio Online and Azure DevOps. Try to fix the problem yourself. And maybe you don't have to say that you fix a little issue. It's very small. Sometimes they think they are very afraid. Oh my God, was this wrong? Maybe just little fixes, do it yourself. And indicate that he or she can say everything. It also can be being afraid to ask help as not only on coding. It always can be with some mental struggle, with some mental issues. And then it's nice if you say very clear and polite, you can say everything to me. You can trust me. But please don't ignore the person and just continue with your coworkers. Some things are coming back. And maybe you're saying you're doing the same slides again and again, but it's on different scenarios. But a lot of the things you can do, you can use the same tool set for specific situations. Isn't that fun? Isn't that what we're all doing as developers, using the same tool set for different situations? And some people with autism are too much on their own. And most of the time, they go too much on their own if they are on a project that they lose their interest in. Advice or support. Try to start yourself a conversation and start talking. Maybe in front of his eyes. Clapping your hands. Oh my God, I couldn't clap. Okay, I couldn't. Okay, good. No. Oh, thank you, technical people. Clap in your hands. Sometimes they need a little shock to be awakened again, or wave to him. But also don't complain on it. Maybe if they are too much on their own, maybe they are not doing work if they are loose in their thoughts. But maybe you can, if you're too much in your own world, maybe you just, if you complain, it's not proactive. So do other advices. And sometimes people are really too much on their own. In some situations, you have pro, you have contra, but sometimes medication is needed. It's a very typical thing, the in their own world thing. Planning. Some people with autism have difficulties with or have a strange planning. Suggest to help with the planning and indicate your own time. It's very important. Sometimes people with autism have also a very impulsive planning. What means that? They pick up their phone. Hello, are you want to go Universal Studios with me tonight? Of course, you don't only have time to do that. Not everyone have always time. Or do you want to go on a dinner? Or do something with me this weekend? Sometimes you have to indicate that it's not possible on a polite way. But please never, never, in all the things, complain on a passive way. If you have to complain, do it proactive. Try to fix the problem. And how do you fix the problem? Understand them. And try to understand them. But on the other hand, you don't always have to say yes to please them. Sometimes something is not possible for your own personal border. You shouldn't go over your own borders too. And planning is not the same as structure. People think it's the same, but it's not the same. If I say my planning, the structure of a task is another thing. And many people with autism have difficulties with structure too. Complete day structure, suggest a structure, a project structure, a day structure. Take the lead, be a leader, and suggest a structure. And please don't just leave them, oh, it's only him or her, or having this problem. No, help. This picture is taken in Seattle, on Pike's Place, where I was going to Microsoft. A lot of people need a lot of confirmations, and this is a very hard thing. Sometimes, if a person asks too much confirmations, it can be very annoying. As some people break relationships because people with autism ask too much confirmations. But maybe it's a bit of silly, and maybe you can think it's easy what you're saying. If they ask confirmations, give their confirmations. Sounds easy, but in fact it is easy, because saying a yes or a no of a confirmation is very easy. If you don't give this confirmation and the person with autism really need that, it's going to consume way more energy, way much energy. And the fact of needing confirmation is a very typical autistic property. Just please don't stop communicating or break the contact or ignore your questions. It's very awkward if you are in a conversation. By example, you have 3 people on the table. And the person with autism is talking to 2 other people on the table. And on any point, they need confirmations. Are you sure we're going to Universal tonight? Yes. And then they ignore the person with autism and going to the 2 other people on the table. It's amazing hard for the people with autism. And it's hard to say, but some people with autism have a lack of friends due to the things that I say. And I have advice on that, of course. I should advise, try to make a diverse or a neurodiverse group of friends as possible. It's nice to have unique and other insights. And accept people to your friend group. Also, if they are not the same like you, not everyone have to be like you. So please don't just be friends with people who are having exact the same time and the same are you and the same interest as you. And then you have a difficulty who has also a talent, a very specific detail view. Sometimes a very specific detail view can use way too much time, but see the talent. And a good thing, I think, for people with autism in tech, ask their code reviews. If you have a very specific difficulty, ask the code review of that thing. And please don't only focus on time. And finally, see the talents, and more talents than just having the type view. And why doing this talents? Because the topic of at Ignite, at Microsoft Ignite, from diversity and inclusion is the neurodiversity, the diversity superpower. So people with autism, if they are motivated, it's very important to notice, they are hard workers. And they really continue until it's fixed. As I said, if they are motivated. And very strict. If they make an appointment with you, they are going to do it. And if they're not able to make the appointment with you, they're going to indicate it. And then nothing will happen. They are very strict. Otherwise, if you make an appointment with somebody with autism, also do the same. And people with autism see outside the box. And it can be the same for a code or a design pattern. Real outside the box, there is something beautiful to explore. And they are problem solvers. And I like the next slide. They are very enjoyable. And that's my new dog. In fact, the dog of my parents. So if my parents are looking to this talk online, I hope they do, they are saying, it's not your dog, it's our dog. But he's in my slides. I'm grateful. And that's the only thing in my full slides, the only thing in my slide deck that I don't know if it's a typical autistic property or if it's just me. But I think it's an autistic property, but not 100% sure. They are very grateful. So again, thank you everybody for making it here possible. And they are honest. They are really honest, most of the people with autism. So wrap up, I told my personal story of life. I gave you theory about autism because I believe that not everyone, and at least not everyone at the tech conference, knows everything about autism. Then I went into specific difficulties and I give you handles how to work with them for your coworkers with autism, how you can support them. And of course, because diversity is a superpower, I told some talents. And now we are here at the wrap-up. I have 2 minutes for questions and answers. I thank you very much. If you want to take a picture of my details, 7-Chair Magic, Dreaming is Believing, on Twitter at Dennie Declerq. You can send me an email. And please, I should say, like some other speakers doing, if you find this session, just give it a good rating. And if you don't like my session, have a talk with me if you not agree with me. Of course, you can also do. And you can find this session in the Microsoft Tech community. So I have some time for a few questions. Are there questions? Okay. Okay, you can, okay, somebody, super. 2 people.
So I know one of the things that's comorbid for a lot of us autistics is sensory processing issues. And you didn't really cover how those could be worked around in the workplace. Do you have any advice for people?
I didn't understand the comorbid issue that you talk about. Can you?
Sensory processing.
Sensory, yes. Yeah, I only have 45 minutes. Yeah, it's true. And I made another talk, and it was included. Yeah, sometimes you have to cut for the talk. Do I have advice? Yes, of course. Try to limit the sensory factors. For example, if a person with autism is sensitive on too much light, try to give him a darker place. If he is sensitive on too much noise, give him a more silent room. So just try to ask what's possible, or as person with autism, try to indicate your sensory difficulties, and just try to ask on your boss, and for the boss, give the requirements you needed.
Cool.
Does it make sense? Yes? We are out of time, but they have one more question. Is it okay? Yes, I get the okay sign. Please ask.
Hi, I'm also autistic.
Yes.
And a problem lately has been my company has decided that we all need to be a closer team by everybody meeting a lot and being in a circle and staring at each other and having one-to-one meetings with our managers. And I can't process eyes and audio at the same time as comprehending what they're saying. I keep telling them, put it in writing, give me an email if it's important. But their policy is we need this one-to-one contact or group hug kind of stuff in order to get more stuff done. Have you dealt with that? I've asked them not to do it that way.
It's a very difficult question. So, the first thing I can say, I can completely agree with your situation that it's very difficult. The other thing, I have to say, for me, a paid job didn't work, and there are reasons that it didn't work. So, and I hope you can keep doing your paid job, because I definitely don't say everybody try to be a volunteer. A paid job is better if it's possible. But it's very, what I can do in Belgium, we have, I don't know how it is in the States, or if you are from the States, I don't know. But we have organizations that support people with autism at work, and maybe you can advise they, and sometimes your boss or your manager, your lead, need to be a better understanding of autism. Some people, and way too much people, are still taking that it's not all true. It's not all theoretically, medically based. That they just need the adjustments to be more, to do this. But that it's really needed. So this talk is available here. Maybe you can try to watch them, or can try to find organizations who make explanations to work, to organizations, to companies for people with autism. I think, I'm not sure that I have a right answer, but that they really have to understand your autism really good, and at this point that things will be possible. Okay, thank you.